Everything rises and falls on leadership. Okay, me as a leader, I'm taking extreme ownership of my organization, right? But then every leader taking extreme ownership of their side. And what I mean by that, do they feel empowered that they can come and talk to me about ideas? Do they feel empowered to come and talk to me about like, hey, I didn't appreciate how that was talked to me, but they feel like they can come and have that conversation, not from a complaint, but being solution minded, right? To make it better. And I think sometimes we think like, okay, hey, that person's performing. Oh, well then boom, slap a manager role on them. Yes, they're performing, but to your point, are they equipped to teach what they've been able to do? Just because I'm an incredible soccer player doesn't make me a great coach.
Retention is not solved by perks or quick fixes. It's rooted in culture, purpose, and mental health. My guest today is Tarnu Mulbah, founder of Dual Real Estate and former SaaS sales leader, who's built and led teams through rapid growth, high pressure, and major transitions. Over more than 14 years in leadership, he's seen firsthand how retention depends less on compensation packages and more on whether people feel supported, inspired, and connected to something bigger than themselves. In this episode, Tarnu and I unpack what leaders often get wrong about keeping their people, why mental health cannot be an afterthought, and how making purpose popular can transform both performance and culture. If you're leading a team or building a business, this conversation will give you a fresh perspective on what it really takes to keep great people and help them thrive. So let's get into it. Hello. I apologize for interrupting your listening experience, but this is worth it. Stay with me. On October 15, we are bringing Workplace Unfiltered, a Heliona experience that is the Heliona Life podcast. The top 5 guests, the most listened guests, will be in a roundtable discussion on October 15 in downtown Kansas City. Shout out to Chicago, Iowa, Illinois. Thank you guys for always tuning in. But I want you to picture this. One night with leaders from across the country, HR professionals, mental health providers, and you, the listener, all in the same room for unfiltered conversation about performance and mental health. It's live, it's going to be honest, and yes, you can be part of it. So make sure to RSVP today at heliona.io. That's HELIONA.io. Or you can visit the show notes right now and make sure to RSVP on the event page. We only have a block for 50 people, exclusive to my listeners and LinkedIn followers. We'd love for you guys to show up October 15, and I would love to meet everyone. There'll be food available, drinks, coffee, amazing time. Doors open at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So again, visit heliona.io to learn more or visit the show notes. And cheers. All right. So Tarnu, I like to talk about, especially on this podcast, most of the conversation that we have is centered around mental health, like retention. And I know you've worked in those, not specifically mental health, but as a leader, you've worked with people where you have to be in charge of some aspect of their well-being. And I want to take your, thesis around just what is the correlation between mental health and also retaining your people as a leader?
Yeah, deep question, right? I know. Which is good. So,
I talk to a lot of therapists.
Honestly, but leaders with leadership, there is a therapy aspect, right? At least the good ones, right? You know, because I think at the end of the day, there's positional leaders, right? Which is, hey, I've just got my title, and look at me, I've got my title, so you should respond to my leadership because I'm qualified. I got the title, right? But then there's true leadership, right? Which you're leading people, which is honestly centered around all of what you talked about. And so I think at the end of the day, I feel that people retain when they feel valued, right? You know, and so I think at the end of the day, when you're leading people, it's finding the individual aspects of that person. What are their goals? What are they wanting, right? Where are they trying to go? And can I help them get to that path? And at the end of the day, when they feel like they're in a position that's helping them get to where they want to go, they stay, right? But it also, stems as a leader. You know, I think about you being a release valve, right? Yeah. You know, oftentimes people don't quit jobs; they quit leaders, right? At least that's what I've experienced. You know, so I work, you know. Gosh, I mean, like very vast background within corporate America, outside of corporate America. You know, I remember when I was running, I was at this startup. It's called Sifted, and which I started there as a sales rep, moved up to an SDR manager, and then ended up being like the VP of sales with a bunch of sales reps, right? And so, but it reminds me of like people responded. You know, when there was positive pressure that was put on, right? And then when negative pressure was put on, they left. Does that make sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so at the end of the day, it's just, okay, who am I working with? Who are they? What are they dealing with? And then how can I help to create an environment that allows them to be the best version of them? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I just said that last night I was actually making rice, and I have the rice cooker. Yeah. And then that's like the little pressure that you have to open. So my wife, I usually make rice the old school. I just use the pan water. And I boil, then I put the rice, and I add a bunch of seasoning to make it taste the way that I grew up eating rice in Africa.
100%.
So she used rice cooker. So last night I was tired and I wanted to use the rice cooker. I don't know how to use it. And then I burned the rice, and she was like, "You forgot to open the pressure." So as you're saying that, just the pressure, like analogy of just working with people. If you apply the wrong pressure, people are going to leave. Same to that rice cooker. I did not open the valve in time, so everything burned. Again, 100%. Your people burn.
100%.
Not burn as a rice cooker, but
but you're right though, right? I think at the end of the day, it's like I think you and I are kind of talking about this before we even got started. I think people want to be a part of something more so than ever today, right? If you look at this generation of people, the first thing that, like, on interviews that I'd have, they would be talking about, like, okay, yes, there's the money aspect. Okay, I want to make money, et cetera. But like our parents' generation, it was more about, okay, what's the job and how much is it going to pay, right? And then they're okay with the negatives because they sacrificed just getting a paycheck, right? And it's just par for the course. It's like, okay, this is just part of me working. When now it's completely flipped now, right? You've got more opportunities that's out there than ever before, in my opinion, right? There's a lot of different things that are out there, but retaining the right people when they feel valued, but then also it's not dragging, right? I think as a leader, you got to, and it's the same thing with my kids. Like, I've got a son who's incredible. Like, his name is Moses, an incredible soccer player, right?
I saw the videos.
Come on now,
he's
right?
good. Yeah,
he's a good player. But we're finding unique ways, me as a parent, to make the journey and the work part of the journey fun. That makes sense, right? How do you create that? Like, because it sucks, waking up at 6 a.m. and going through what he's doing right now, right? All that stuff. But how do I remind him that that's part of the process, and how do we create a fun aspect, or how do we get it to a point to where in his mind he's thinking that what I'm doing is contributing to what's going on, and it's not just a task, right? People are the same way, right? When you're leading people, it's the same way as you are. You're parenting in a way, right? And so it's the same thing. So it's like, okay, when they're a part of that journey, they're experiencing that pressure or they're experiencing adversity. Okay, does it go to a negative mindset that this is an attack on who I am, right?
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And is this an attack on my identity? Right. Or is this just part of the process? And how do we create that suck as in a positive light? Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense, because I played soccer and I never enjoyed it because my dad he played soccer
Yeah.
during his time, and he just put me through the whole process. I actually came to the US to play for UMKC. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
But the moment I had an opportunity, because he wasn't around anymore, I just quit right away.
For sure.
I was like, nope, there's no one here telling me you need to wake up and do this, and I left away. And even now as a parent, one of my, my first son, Mercy, I also wanted him to play soccer. I bought all this ball, but he has no interest in sports whatsoever.
Hey,
he likes to build Legos. He's the smartest kid ever. He's 7 years old, and he's already like reading like Harry Potter books. He loves to read, because as a baby, I would sit with him and read all the time. And I wanted to make that as a habit. But now he's like, it got to a point when I'm like running away because we read so much, and he loves reading so much, but I get so exhausted. I enjoy the process, but imagine reading every day with a 7-year-old. He loves reading. But so some part of me, I had like that element of my dad where I was like, maybe I should just push him a little bit. And I remember taking him to like soccer camp, and he was screaming and on the ground to the point that he motivated all the other kids to scream with him. And I'm saying, you know what? Let me not do the same thing that my dad did. So I took him off of that program, and now I'm just working with him. A few weeks ago, I saw him like kicking a soccer ball. And I was like, yes, it's happening. It's happening, guys. It's happening. And my wife was like, just don't put pressure. Just let him be. Let him find this sport if he's interested. But I'm just waiting, as a leader. So I can see that as a way that you were talking about, just the pressure aspect of working with teams. Another aspect that I want to talk about is like growth, because I know you've worked with sales. You've worked in different levels of sales, and you lead so many teams. But like when you look back, like what role did like retention play, especially when you're transitioning from one team to another? Like what do you see happen, especially because I know as you progress from different roles, meaning you were either leaving a few people to progress to the next role, and now you were the leader working with them. Like how did retention play out for you personally, and then also for the teams that you had to lead at each level?
Yeah, I mean, there were times where we felt like it was a revolving door, right? Like, okay, hey, we bring them on, burn them out after 6 months, 7 months, a year, then it's just like a revolving door over and over and over and over again, right? And so when it goes back to, okay, there's a vision, right? It's like first and foremost, what's the vision, cause, and purpose? Right. As corny as that may sound.
No, I like that. That's how my brain works. So.
Yeah, exactly right. But I think that so oftentimes it goes back to just what's your thought process of leadership as a whole, right? And going back to our kids too. I've got a daughter that she quit soccer and said it was because she was like, Dad, I don't like to sweat.
Oh wow!
Right, like, but she's also the person that now she's playing soccer because it's her idea, right? And so it goes back to, okay, am I pushing or am I pulling? If I'm pushing, then I'm forcing people to do what they don't want to do. Right. But if there's a pull, then people are progressing in a way that they're moving towards that, and it makes sense like this, because at the end of the day, like the people that I led. And I'm leading today, my aim and my hope is that they feel that I, as a leader, am that me being in their life, they're going to have betterment, whether it be and here's the thing too, they also know that they can leave at any point. Right. But they know that I'm going to invest in them as if they're being with me forever. Right.
I like that.
And so, I was having another conversation with somebody. He's like, man, you spend so much time with people, right? Like you spend so much time investing in people, developing people, you're patient with people. Like, aren't you wasting your time if they leave? And I say, well, if I don't make that investment in that person, what if, and they don't develop and they don't grow, what if they stay?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I think it's having an abundance mentality that, okay, I'm going to help develop them for when they are ready. Yeah. They're typically overqualified for their current position that they're at now. Right. And then the natural next progression step is to get promoted. And where I'm going with it is that if I, as a leader, if I'm the one that, if the only way they can succeed in my organization can succeed is if I'm a part of it, right? Then it's so dependent on me, right? And so, but if I can help create duplication with that individual, with certain aspects, with systems, et cetera, if you remove me out of the equation, can the train still run? right?
Yeah. Wow.
And my goal as a leader is if I can just, me being in there is just adding lighter fluid to a fire that's already burning.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the retention aspect, if people are developing, right? We had a scenario where we didn't have budget to create to really hire managers, right? For one organization that I was part of. So we just built a structure of team leads, right? And I treated those team leads as if they are managers, right? Knowing that there's a potential that you have the ability to grow. And also if this is, and I even told them this, I was like, if this isn't the right role for you, at least now you're prepared for whenever you do go and interview, whatever, you can talk about your experience that you had leading people, even in this small facet, right? And so lo and behold, right, then when the budget came, we were already prepared because we've already been preparing them mentally. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And so then there becomes a path. Does that make sense?
There's a path.
Because then if somebody comes in my organization, they can see the path of, okay, here's what it looks like. Here's the roadmap.
Yeah.
If I do this, I get this. If I do this, I get this, right? And then I know that there is a line, and there's also multiple paths too, right?
Yeah.
I can go down this path or I can go down this path, right? And at least they see it. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You actually validating Heliona as the platform. So thank you for that.
There you go. Look at that.
Yeah, so like another thing to that, it's like even this morning I was reading like report from Gallup and also like Deloitte, but it's like different kind of research, and they were saying that just disengagement is costing U.S. companies around $500 billion every year. That's insane. That's like a GDP of some small countries. And in the U.S. alone, people that are not being trained properly, invested into, are staying within companies highly disengaged, and they're costing the company that. Yes. Which is insane. And then another part that Gallup said, it says great leaders are not born, they're trained. And yet 82% of new managers and directors don't get any training. Yes. They're just getting the position and be like, hey, figure this out, go to work. Yes. To your point, those are the individuals that don't get trained or invested to, and then they end up staying. And they're the one costing, not to their fault at all. It's just the company doesn't have the paths for them to grow, for them to find their voice, their role within the company. So they're working there to get a paycheck, not to their fault at all. That's because there's no structure created in the company, or they don't have leaders that are proactive to a point that they can train those new managers that usually get thrown into position. Yes. Like these stats are crazy. $500 billion
I believe
every year. In the U.S. alone, that's the GDP of countries that is going to disengagement, just the cost of it. And then you have 82% that are saying we have no training. And I want to know, just in your role as you progress in all these different roles, you've kind of touched on how you're proactive and actually investing to a point that people are saying, why are you wasting your time? Yeah. When you are like, no, this is the reason why I'm doing this. This is costly. We don't want them to stay if this is not the right place for them. But I want to know, like, how do you see that play out as a leader, as you progress, especially and now we have 5 different generations in the workplace. You have from the Gen Zs all the way to the boomers. Like, how do you see that play out as you navigate your role as a leader and hiring and firing and managing all this different generation? How do you see that play out in general?
Yeah, great question, right? I mean, I can agree with that sentiment, right? Like it's easy to hide, right? And I think sometimes we think like, okay, hey, that person's performing. Right. Oh, well then, boom, slap a manager role on them. Yeah. Right. Scary. When it's like, okay, yes, they're performing, but to your point, are they equipped to teach what they've been able to do? Right. Just because I'm an incredible soccer player doesn't make me a great coach. Right.
Same here.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. Now I like to think that I'm a great coach. Now that I'm coaching my youngest daughter's team, right? They're going to be the most motivated, inspirated, inspirated. That's a word.
I mean, you sound like a great coach because my son doesn't like me coaching him.
Oh, it took a minute. It took a minute for my daughter's daughter to get okay with it. Right. She's like, Dad, are you sure?
You're right.
But
is this okay?
Is this okay? But to your point, it's a problem. Yeah. Right. And so especially to your point, like you got all these different people, right? I heard my mom used to say this. She's like, hey, one of the best parts about working with people is that you're working with people. She's like, one of the worst parts about working with people is that you're working with people.
That's a beautiful balance.
And but to your point, like, okay, there's different generations, different. Here's the other thing too. generations, cultures, personality,
yes,
right? Background.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of how people are raised, about how they respond to adversity, right? It's twofold.
Yeah.
You have to start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So it starts with hiring. Yes, there's a book called Energy Bus. Highly recommend it. It's by this guy. Oh my gosh, what's his name? John Gordon. All right. He has a whole slew of leadership books, right?
Right.
But doesn't matter anyone's background, age, culture, etc. From the beginning as a leader, it's establishing here is what the mission is, and here's the tone of our environment.
Right.
And I keep using the word environment because my personal belief is that you as a leader don't create culture. Culture is a byproduct of a good environment, right? And so if I can create the environment, then culture naturally comes about because expectations, standards, things like that all come in line, all play a role in that. Does that make sense, right?
No,
and so, but if I can understand people's personality types, what are they trying to accomplish? And that takes time, right? It takes time to getting down to the nitty gritty. And maybe I'm not a frontline leader, but I have leadership that's part of my frontline, right? It's okay. It starts from the top up, right? And if we can put in play of understanding that, like it goes back to, have you seen that one like meme that we're talking about memes
probably,
but there's like this meme where like this teacher is teaching and it says climb the tree, and you have like a monkey, you have a bear, you have a fish, you have an octopus, like all these different animals. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Right?
I need to go find that.
It's a good like illustration, just like our school system, right? Which that's a whole nother conversation, but of just teaching, like, okay, it's not just one way, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with leading people. It's not just one way.
Yeah.
Here's how it is, right? And so if I can get on the individual aspect then there's pros and cons to it, because there's things that I can draw from. Like I remember there's a gentleman that worked for me that he has way more years of experience than I do, right? Like way smarter than me, etc. But nonetheless, he's part of my team, right? And so how do I engage that person and lead and coach and develop that person based off of their background, where they're at, right?
Yeah.
And in this particular case, not all the cases, but in this particular case, there's the whole age gap that like he wasn't ready to receive leadership from somebody that was younger, right? And another individual as well. So how do I adjust my leadership style to connect with that people, right? And because again, everyone can communicate, but very few connect. Yeah. And if I can connect with that person and coach and develop and mentor that person based off where they're at and meeting them at their level, then there's trust that's being built. When there's trust that's being built, then the things that I'm saying start to connect, right? Yeah. And then the things that I'm saying when they connect, then we start to see progress, right? Because we're going down that road, right? And so if I can meet people where they're at, you find good things, right? Now there's friction, there's adversity, right? If they're not willing to jump on the bus based off of what the standard is of this team, then there's a conversation of, is this the right person for the bus, right? Do I need to keep adjusting, or is this person just not willing to adjust? Yeah. And that's the other part of the conversation of like, okay, do we need to find a better role, position, team fit for that individual, or are they even part of what we can add to the company? Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense, because I actually had a similar experience where I hired someone who was like probably 25 years older than I am. Yeah. And I found myself in that position where I think back then I also had some kind of insecurity of having someone that older who was a former CEO, and now he's working underneath me. And I, as an African kid, I was told not to speak to people older than me, like to not raise your voice and all these things. So I find myself where I struggle to like communicate with him, and I was letting him do things that weren't aligned with what the company was all about. Totally. Like culturally, it was not a good fit, and it was the most expensive learning. I had to go through. Eventually, I did let him go, but like getting to that, I had to learn myself that, so this is my problem.
Yes.
This is something that I need to work on. So I actually had to go back to therapy to understand why is it that I still have this issue with like talking, giving, just delegating tasks to someone who's older than me, which led me to go back to Africa to talk about my childhood trauma. I was like, what the hell? I'm in the workplace. Why am I talking about all this?
It's all connected though.
No, it did. It was wild. I was like, okay, I need to go work in my childhood trauma. I need to know that, okay, how can I separate my own childhood experience from this experience now? And that, okay, I created this space. I brought in these individuals, even though they're 25 plus years older than me. They're waiting for me to give him directions, but I was not, because I kind of froze the moment we have meetings.
Yep.
Because he's like way older. I'm just like, how do I tell this guy? I feel like he knows more than me. So a lot of insecurities came about. One of the reasons why I created this company is because of all of those experiences of like realizing that there are people that are coming into the workplace with their own trauma. Yep. And sometimes they find themselves in those places. And to your point, meeting people where they're at, it's like one of the biggest, skills that leaders can have. Yeah. And I love that you are always, kind of like intervening in every level as you progress as a leader. You're not just trying to get rid of people if they don't work. You're like, let's find them the right place.
Yes.
We can shift them to the next team. Maybe this leader will be the best person for them. You're not just saying, all right, that's it. You get out of here. Get out of here.
It just goes, it's people, right?
You're working at people.
Like you're working with people like, okay, those are all, again, my belief system is that, hey, everyone's created for a purpose and a reason, right? And they're here for a reason, right? And it could be for a season or it could be for a long period of time, right? And so with this engagement that we're here, right? So how do we maximize this? Yeah. And it's funny you talk about that, because I think there's a lot of like your identity plays a lot into how you lead too, right? And your ability to separate. Like there's things that, like, to your point, is like, you don't back talk.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? You don't back talk. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? It's like,
you back talk, you get a backhand.
100%, right? But with that being said, though, it's like, okay, like I've had to look at my identity, but then also separating the fact that my job has nothing to do with my identity. Yeah. Like what I'm doing with this work has nothing to do with my identity. Right. So why am I? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean? Like, so why am I letting my identity like let myself be less than, right? You know what I mean? Like even my college education or your education or where you went to school, et cetera, that has nothing to do with who you are as a person, right? And so when I started getting to the point to where I'm firming up of who I am, right? And the fact that even though I make mistakes, that still does not dictate who I am, right? Does not dictate the value that I bring to this world, right? My creative value has nothing to do with that. Indeed. Then you start to realize, like, okay, all right, so I can talk to this person that's older than me, right? Or younger than me, maybe had better education than me, or whatever, right? But if we can, like, now the question is, okay, me in your life, does that help you get to your goal? You in my life, does that help me get to my goal, right? And if we're on the same page and there's unity, right, then let's freaking go, right?
No, I mean, there's so much pressure, but I think if you're gonna identify that I'm bringing my identity into work, maybe that can help take off that pressure that we always have, especially younger leaders that are finding themselves where they're leading people that are much older than them.
Yes.
Now, which also brought me to a question, like, when it comes to the workplace, who exactly is in charge of culture? Is it the C-suite? Is it the frontline managers? Or is it the entire body of the organization?
Great question. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And I think the leader is the one that creates the environment. So going back to what I talked about. Yeah. How, like, what does that environment look like? Right. Like from the top down. And another book plug is Extreme Ownership, right? Like there's a book called Extreme Ownership. Okay, me as a leader, I'm taking extreme ownership of my organization, right? But then every leader taking extreme ownership of their side. Does that make sense, right? Yeah. So where it goes from that is like, okay, if the leader is creating an environment that is conducive to growth. And what I mean by that, do they feel empowered that they can come and talk to me about ideas? Do they feel empowered to come and talk to me about, like, hey, like, I didn't appreciate how that was talked to me, but they feel like they can come and have that conversation, not from a complaint, but being solution minded, right? To make it better, right? You know, like it's, is it okay for me to ask why? Right. You know, other aspects as well. Right. Like, do they feel that they have care for me? Right. So if I can create a culture like that, then there's other, if I can create an environment that's like that, then the culture is stimulated from that, right? Yeah. And then it's up to everybody to be responsible for the culture, right? Of upholding it, right? Yeah, does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
And like there's a story. I'll just be real. There's a story like, and actually it's from the Bible. It actually talks about like this guy from Nehemiah, that he was building this wall, right? And they were trying to build this wall. They've been trying to build this wall for like many, many generations, right? Couldn't get it done from the enemies. And so then Nehemiah comes and basically starts from the bottom and says, hey, everybody, you're responsible for your section of the wall, right? So your family unit, down to the babies, down to you own this section of the wall, right? And what took generations ended up taking months, right? Wow. You know what I mean? Because unity happened, right? And so I think if everybody can be the culture bearers, right? You know, because they know like again, the teams that we've had that had the best cultures, when you came into it, everyone felt different. They felt like, okay, this is different, right? You know what I mean? This is like when people were slacking, you know, everyone upheld, right? Because everyone was on fire. Does that make sense? No, so naturally, what happens in cultures like that, people that aren't meant to be part of that culture, they feel almost abnormal, right? And they don't feel like they fit there. Right. But here's the deal, that's okay. Because we're running at a different level. Does that make sense, right? Absolutely. Depending on where you're going. But then also the people that do come and they do want to be a part of it, they naturally conform to it, you know, and they also realize that, wait, hold on one second. I see, here's what this team is, but also I've got unique abilities and traits. I'm going to add value to this culture, right? And so they can add themselves to that. And I think it just stimulates just an authentic, unified team. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. You know, I've actually seen like some of that in your leadership. I remember, I think 3 years ago, you were doing like a 100-meter race with one of your team member, like what's his name again? Askia. He just got married.
That's right. He just got married, man.
And I saw the video, and then you guys were just running, and I think you won. And you know, I have the same last name as him, and I'm just like, you've embarrassed the entire bloodline. Yes. I was like, how dare you lost?
No, for sure.
Yeah. So I like that aspect, you know, of like just, you know, creating that psychologically safety space. In like the therapy world, they call it psychological safety, which is now coming into the workplace. And let's create a psychological safety space for people to want to come and talk to you if something happened.
Well, it's bro. It's authenticity,
right?
Like that scenario. You know how that scenario happened. We're having a one-on-one, having a conversation. And we're just getting to know each other, right? And so somehow the topic of speed came about, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? And then it was literally just like, you want to like, you know, he's like, oh, I can smoke. I was like, bro, I don't think you like. He threw a jab at me. He's like, yeah, I don't think you can beat me. And I was like, what? Like, let's do this right now, right? You know, but it's authentic, right? And at that time, like, it was a week that was hell, to be honest with you. It was we weren't hitting our goal. Everyone was stressed, and it's like, listen. Like, and for me, I just need to go outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Something refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's go have some fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
That was fun. I saw the video. I was like, okay, this is different. And I watched the whole thing. And then he lost. I was like, come on, man. We have the same last name. You cannot do that.
I know. And then it ended up five other people wanted to race
Wanted to raise you?
Still smoked them.
Yeah. This is why I'm the leader.
Now my hammies were smoked too.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like, come on.
No, yeah.
So.
Well, I'm sure you went home and you were like, I'm off for the next 3 days. Yeah,
exactly. That was my workout.
I haven't ran in so long. I can't even imagine. So like, I do have a question just based off of the pressure and the performance. Like, how do you balance those two in the workplace as a leader to make sure that you can have, you know, that, you know, psychological safety, because sometimes pressure can overtake the performance aspect of it, where, to my analogy of the rice cooker, there was too much pressure, everything burnt. In this scenario, people get burnt out when there's too much pressure, but there has to be some healthy amount of performance in order for the pressure to be fair just for the rest of the people. Like, how does that look like? Especially in sales, people can easily go above and beyond because they have a goal in mind that they want to reach. And as a leader, how do you make sure that they don't burn themselves out and maybe, impact the culture in a way?
Yeah, great question. I mean, because also as a leader, I think sometimes I've had to shield my team from the pressures that I'm experiencing from like board commitments, quotas, things like that, right? So it's shielding, but then there's also knowing when, and this is, I hate using this term, but it's the best term I can think of. It's knowing when to use the stick and knowing when to use the carrot, right? And there are times where you have to put some pressure,
right?
But it's me going and making a withdrawal from deposits that I've made throughout this whole relationship. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
If I'm putting deposits in, like if we're connecting and if I've invested in you, I've taken the time, I've coached you, I've hopped on phone calls with you, I've walked through this, I've led you by, I had one mentor, his name's Brad, say like leadership is spelled EXAMPLE. It's your example. I've led from my example. I've done all these things throughout the process of our relationship.
Right.
Then when I'm using the stick, I'm making a withdrawal of an account that's abundant.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think when I've had to do that, the team has responded knowing that, okay, it's go time, right? You know what I mean? And then there's times where I've used the stick, or there's times where I've used the carrot, you know, of creating fun, incentives, things like that, right? And so I think at the end of the day, it's just understanding when to apply what tool within your bag, right? And most times, the amateur leader just has one tool, and it's the hammer. You know what I mean? And it's
everything you use a hammer for.
Everything when sometimes it's the chisel, right? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's other aspects, right? And or sometimes there's one time where this individual wasn't hitting quota, right? And we're getting to the point to where it was either time like, hey, do we need to have a conversation and let this person go? Right. And he wasn't responding. And so he wasn't responding to one of my managers. And so I brought him into my office and I just knew the person. I was like, you okay? I was like, first and foremost, it's like, you're not hitting quota. What's going on? You're also kind of being a jerk.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, are you okay? And then just sobbing.
Oh man.
Just sobbing. Going through it, and then just crying, and then come to find out, right? Fiance just left him, running behind on bills, right? Feeling less than. We start diving into just all the crap that was going on, right? Damn. Because it wasn't like no one wants to suck at their job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No one wants to. You know what I mean? So, okay, if that's the case, then why aren't they performing? Why aren't they like, there's a reason for it. Yeah. Right. And so it's just taking time. And then it was like, okay, I understand what's going on. Right. I was like, but buddy, we also got a job to do. Yeah. So how do we come to a resolution? Right. And so I was like, okay, you take the day, reset, but then let's come back and let's talk about let's get down to the nitty gritty of how we're gonna accomplish what needs to be accomplished, right? But there's also a time frame that we gotta get this done, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get with you. What do we need to do, right? And if they aren't willing to help themselves more, and if I'm willing to help them more than they want to help themselves, then we've got a problem. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. But if they're willing to help themselves as much as I want to help them, right? Then because helping them get to where they need to go naturally and helps me get to my goal, right? Yeah. And which helps get to the company goal. Right. Then there's then that's that positive pressure. Yeah. Right. and again, it's not always warm fuzzy rainbows, right?
Yeah.
You know, you got to figure that piece out too. But
Right.
I think it's just connecting with people on an individual aspect.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's deep because a lot of leaders sometimes they find themselves in that position. They don't know what to do.
No.
It's like, oh shoot, they're crying. I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go talk to HR. You know,
For sure.
But instead, you were there with them and be present, but then also being like realistic at the same time. I think there's a term for it, but I can't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. Just maybe it's just empathy.
Yeah, just empathy, just being there with someone and genuinely listening, but also being realistic at the same time.
100%.
Because life happens. You know, people go through stuff, and sometimes they need, like acknowledgement and a space for them to be acknowledged. So thank you for being that leader. I think that's very, very much needed, especially today with us going through COVID. Yeah. And now with this very like broken society, I'm calling it. There's so much going on. People are struggling, just to make ends, like meets just in general. So thank you for being like one of those leaders that sit down and be there with the employee. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, it's like just mental health as a whole.
Okay.
I wanted to know just on a personal level, like how are you managing your own mental health as a leader, and then also working with all the different people, not only that, but different levels of leadership at the same time. How is your mental health? Like, how are you doing, I guess?
Yeah. Hey, great question, man. I think there's been times where I've had like this toxic positivity, right? Which is, I should say misplaced positivity, if that makes sense, right? Oh, everything's just gonna be fine. Everything's just be fine, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a level of authenticity that you can be with just like, hey, I think like having a positive mental attitude it's not saying that everything is just going to be fine, but it's knowing that, hey, I've got a problem, but there's a solution for it, right? And there's one gentleman, his name's Jamie Santos. He told me this one time. He said, "You as a leader need to give out of the overflow." You have to give out of the overflow, and what he was meaning by that was like, if you're running on empty, right, and you're still trying to give, like I can't give, like if you need a hat, right, I can't give you a hat if I don't have a hat in my possession. Yeah. And so, there's times, man, that like my wife, like literally actually a couple days ago, we were talking about this, is, hey, I need to rest. Right. Like I need to be intentional with my rest. Yeah. Right. Like what am I doing? Like therapy, yes, I've got therapy. I've got therapists. I've got mentors. I got like men and women that speak into my life, right. That's helping to fill me up. Right. Yeah. And it's multiple aspects. It's, like physically, right? With just working out, things like that, just letting off steam. But then also like spiritually, like how am I filling myself up spiritually, relationally, right? Like because all that plays, I think this all ties in, right? I'm a father, I'm a husband, right? I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm all these different things, right? I'm all the things, right? So like, okay, like how is all that playing into who I am as a person? Right. But at the core, I'm taking time and intentionality with my identity, right? And where my identity is anchored in, right? And so I know people have different belief systems, but mine is through a worldview of my created value, right? Yeah. And because I anchor that in, that allows me to go through storms when all hell is breaking loose and I'm feeling the way I feel, right? But I can keep moving forward, right? Yeah. I think the best example I can give you is, so I have a buddy of mine this guy's like the smartest, most athletic, good-looking person on the face of the planet, right? You know what I mean? And he, his name's Justin, right? Shout out Justin. He flies a B-2 stealth bomber. Like he literally is like graduated top of the Air Force Academy. What? He had a choice of becoming an astronaut or flying to B-2 stealth, and he decided to do the B-2 stealth, right? Like insane, right? And so we're having this conversation just about planes. And there's a scenario where pilots, when they go through like gray skies and they go through storms, there's this phenomenon called spatial disorientation. They call it spatial D, okay? What happens is when you're flying through like a gray sky, like kind of an overcast day like today, or storms, because of gravity and how the clouds flow, down feels up and up feels down, right? Like everything feels like you get this overwhelming feeling that you're falling, right?
Oh, wow.
And so what happens is, and this is actually where they thought that most plane crashes are a result of this, is because of spatial disorientation.
Right.
This is actually what they think that what happened with Kobe with that helicopter, right? And so what pilots have gauges, and they don't just have one gauge, they have multiple gauges that tell altitude, direction, all this stuff, right? Because that feeling is so strong that when they look at one gauge, they think that the gauge is off because their feeling is so strong, right? So they have multiple gauges telling the same thing, basically telling you, no, you keep flying, right? You keep moving, right? And the nose of the airplane is called the attitude, which I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So, there are two things you can control in your world: your actions and your attitude, right? Attitude isn't your feeling, because like it's okay to feel, but your response to the feeling, right? And so what I have is I have gauges in my life, right? That I have through my belief system, through the Bible, through my mentors that I have in my life, through I have different people that speak into my life, therapy, etc. That when I have that off feeling, these things that I've put in place in my life keep me flying in the right direction, right?
Wow.
Where it tells me when I'm empty, it tells me when I need to make an adjustment, tells me when I need to make those different pieces, because it validates. It's still, even if my feeling is wrong, it validates it, or if my feeling is right, it validates it. Does that make sense?
No, perfect sense.
So as I keep flying through life, right, like you've got that piece, and I think people. When you don't have that, or they don't put themselves in environments where they have that, I mean, you're flying by yourself, right? And that's what you see with crash and things like that. So, anyways, so like that's what I do, man. You know what I mean? It's a combination of multiple different things,
right?
But at the end of the day, like in my opinion, no matter all the trauma that you're dealing with, everything that it's all centered around your identity. Yeah, it's all centered around your identity, because if you depending on how you value and you look at yourself, right? It changes how you father, right? We're both dads, you know what I mean? We're both young dads, right? It changes how you father. Like I struggled with this for a long time. My little brother actually sent me shout out Gundo.
Gundo.
he sent me it was on Father's Day. Whenever it was like my first or second Father's Day. And he's like, wow, fatherless fathers fathering. Right. Wow. Yeah. And I shot him a text here whenever he became a father, right? You know, like, look at us, fatherless fathers fathering. Like we're going down a road with fatherhood because our dad died when we were 6 years old, right? So we're going under uncharted territory. Yeah. Because as of this year, I'm older than my dad was, right? Oh wow. And it's like it's like this weird feeling that I'm going through as a father. Yeah. But where I'm going with it, but because I didn't have a dad doesn't mean that I'm a bad father. Right. Does that make sense? Right. Oh, yeah. And in your identity, man, is surrounded. So like, how can you anchor that? How do you work on that? How do you fix that? Yeah. How do you invest in that? Right. And that's what we focus in on, man. And I think everything else from there just stems from flows. You know what I mean?
No,
right?
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
I can relate to that for sure. Just basically everything that you just talked about, especially on the mental health piece. And the personal piece as well. So thank you for articulating it so well. Yeah, man. I love the analogy of the gauges. I think I have a similar example, but not as specific as that. Yeah. So I'm never going to steal that. So thank you for that.
Bro, listen, I stole that from somebody else. Right? Okay? Yeah. You know what I mean? So there you go.
If you're listening, feel free to just take this and share it, because it's very beautifully represented. Yeah. And, it shows just what's priority, and just the importance of having those, different individuals in your life that could bring you back and anchor you if you find yourself in like disorientation and not know what to do, decision, like fatigue and overload with just realities of life. Having those right individuals, especially as a leader, I think this is something that I also talk about here on this podcast, making sure the managers, the leaders, you have that individual in your life or individuals in your life that could always anchor you back if you find yourself in disorientation. So thank you for that well articulation and explaining in a way that anyone can understand. I wasn't going to talk about this, but now that you share this, I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that came on this podcast based off the interviews that I've had, I'm calling it the 3 C's to retention/life.
Okay.
The first one is clarity, and I wanted to get your take on it because as you talk, I see so much clarity. And the second one is capacity. And for some reason, I can't remember the third one right now. but let's start with clarity and also capacity. Just as an individual who is a leader and has worked with so many different people, how do you see, like clarity play out and also capacity? And I'll think of the third one.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. A book I read says, make the vision and make it plain. Right. And so when you need to be clear and specific as far as what we're trying to do. Like we may not be clear on how we're going to get there.
Right.
But do I at least have a direction? You know what I mean? Right.
The second C is communication.
Okay. That's good too.
So clarity, communication, and capacity.
I love that. Yeah. Right. And so, like if we have clarity, to me, like when I hear that, it's my first time hearing it, it's okay. It's clear.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're clear. It's not complex.
Right.
Right. It could be a simple thing. Now there's a difference between simple and easy. Right. Just because something's simple doesn't make it easy.
Right.
But there's I think about you and how you advocate. Right. It's clear that your mission is to help empower and impact people with their mental health. Right. And that's clear.
Yeah.
And so now how you get there could be multiple different angles. This podcast, your company, all the different aspects of the things that you do, right?
Right.
That's all different, right? Communicate. I think communication also, it's direct, right? And it's talked about often.
Right.
Right. People tend to think they need to hear things like 7 times before it really registers, right? Just because I told you once doesn't mean that you're gonna. I mean, it's my kids too, right? It's like, hey, brush your teeth every day.
I have so many gray hair from just like repeating and over again, especially 7 years old. There's something there that drives you insane.
over and 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 over again, right? Same thing with people. What makes just because you're an adult doesn't make you any different. You know what I mean? Like you need to hear it over and again, right? And it needs to be the same message, right? Until the message shifts.
Yeah.
Right. What was the other one?
The last one is capacity.
Capacity. Okay. That's a good one. Right. You can't do everything.
Right.
Right. And I think if the vision is big enough, it requires multiple people.
Right.
Right. It requires like if your mission is it can only be done by you, you're dreaming too small.
Yeah.
Right. You're dreaming too small. Right. You're too small minded. It should be so big that there are multiple people that need to be part of it so that your capacity frees up. Right. But I think so often, and I'm talking to myself right now as I'm saying this. Right. But it's being willing to let certain things go. Yeah. Right. So that you can have the capacity for the greater things, right? And so oftentimes it's more like people, they pride themselves in being able to do so many things and multitask, right? But there's no such thing as multitasking, right? Actually, the CEO of the brokerage I'm part of, his name's Robert Refkin. He said this one time in a podcast. They asked him, they said, like, what's your strength? How do you strengthen your strengths, and how do you strengthen your weaknesses? And he's like, well, I keep focusing on my strengths and I strengthen those things, but I don't strengthen my weaknesses. And everyone's like, what?
Yeah, they're like, wait, what?
He's like, no, I put the right people in play for my weaknesses, right? And so what I bring to the table is my strengths. Right. They bring their strengths, and we're stronger together, right? And I think what happens with a lot of times with leadership is that because of pride, ego, right? But when you really look at it at the core, it's fear. Right. It's fear of letting go because you think that it can't be done the way you want it to get done, or you think that, because my hand isn't on it, right? That we're gonna fail, right? When the reality is because of your fear is keeping you from growth, right?
Wow.
Oh, bro, that's a word right
Yeah,
there.
that's a strong one.
That's a word right there,
Yeah.
right? You know, but that's what I feel. You know, what I mean, for capacity.
That's the first time that I've seen someone link fear to capacity.
It is
Yeah,
so true.
so that's actually very powerful.
It's a give me.
Yeah,
It's a mine.
that's going to be the title of this episode. So.
Come on, I love it.
Yeah, this was powerful.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, this will be the last time I'm going to interrupt your listening experience, but I just want to say this. You know how you finish an episode and you wish you could be in the same room for the conversation? Well, on October 15, you actually can. Workplace Unfiltered, a Heliona experience, is your chance to be part of it all. Live at the Abbott in Kansas City. RSVP at heliona.io before spots run out. That's Heliona as in Heliona, and I'll see you there.
We've gotten to the end of this conversation, and we do have a closing question that I like to ask my guests. So based on everything that we've talked about, from the moment you walked into this building, or you can even take it back from the moment you wake up today to this moment right now, how is your spirit right now?
Wait, from the moment that I came and then now, or just in
in general, all day. So from the moment you wake up today to this moment right now.
Listen, my spirit's full, and my spirit's grateful, right? Because I started my day with gratitude, right? You know, and I'm telling you, man, I can bring tears to my eyes. I get emotional about this, right? But like, I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for the breath in my lungs, right? I'm grateful for the ability that I have, that I'm in this country, I'm here, we're having this conversation, right? You know what I mean? Like so it's just a spirit of gratitude, man.
Right.
And so this conversation is also just validating that, brother. You know what I mean? And so my spirit's full.
Oh, wow.
And so, because again, man, we just been intentional because of that, man. But I'm telling you, that's how I'm
powerful.
feeling. That's how I'm feeling right now. That's my spirit, brother.
No, yeah, that's
You know
a good feeling. Grateful. I actually told myself if I have a daughter, I'm going to name her Grateful.
That's a great name.
So wow. Thank you. This has been a very full conversation. You know, I genuinely enjoyed it. And I know the people listening are going to enjoy it as well. But yeah, thank you for being on the Heliona Insight podcast. I'm definitely going to have you in season 2 for sure.
Come on now. Hey, this was fun, bro. Let's do it again, man.
All right, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.